Yeah, and as they say, so I admit Greg. What? I think what he's trying to say is everything's gonna be okay.
Hashtag Trust the Ape at Trust the Ape Co. So yeah, I was fucking around with some video there. But anyway, want to tell y'all a story. Tale. The Tale of $1 Million Harry. So this is loosely based on a true story, maybe a number of true stories. So you think about like a person and the reputation that a person has in their social status, right? This is like very important to some people, but not so important to a lot of people. Um, Marcus Aurelius kind of had quite a bit to say about this, like in Meditations. He's very much against seeking any type of fame, especially posthumous fame, right? He's like, basically, why do you give a shit what people say about you when you're dead? Because you're dead, doesn't matter to you. And basically, those people, those motherfuckers, they're gonna be dead soon anyway. So who cares what they have to say about you? But then you look at now, we've got documents from thousands of years ago, just people talking shit about each other, it's like half of our history. And so it's kind of weird, the way that humans hold on to this stuff. They're like 2,000 years ago, they were talking shit about this guy, so we're just gonna keep perpetuating that shit today. And but anyway, so yeah, that type of shit happens. But then you have other people who are kind of contemporaneously of a higher status than yourself, right? So, for example, the guy I work for, he's well respected in the community, and he's a respectable guy. The guy he has a motherfucking park in the city named after him and shit. Um, one of those types of people. And it's easy to see why. He's a person who commands respect. When you're in a room with him, uh, the type of person you don't want to let down. And I've had a lot of people actually just walk up to me when I'm in uniform and say, "Hey, I know that guy. He arrested me once, but he treated me fairly." And I've had one guy, in fact, tell me exactly the same story, 10 times over now, he's never told it to me before. And it was basically to that effect, "Oh, that guy, he gave me a bunch of breaks, and then he had to roll me up one time, but he treated me with dignity, and I remember that, that type of thing." Okay, that's interesting. So you're remembered for that type of thing, being a good guy even when you had to be the bad guy, And well, hello, Silverwolf. So yeah, it's a short story. Um, the one that's um, close to home. It's like thinking about, I always think about the way I want my kids to remember me. Especially at this stage in my life, where it's okay, so they don't really get to have a relationship with me or know me personally, but they're gonna have all this other stuff that maybe later they'll discover, this YouTube channel or the music that I've made or the writing that I've done or whatever, and it'll be out there. And so I want to take every opportunity to try to leave something behind that they'll remember me by, not just what people said about me. And but then there's a certain school of philosophy that say why even care about that? People are going to think what they're going to think anyway, and people are going to believe whatever they want to believe. And only in action can you persuade them. Anything else is just fucking hearsay, right? But I think leaving behind a record, an account, a legacy, that kind of is action, right? As opposed to inaction, as opposed to being, well, whatever, I don't care what those people think about me, especially if it's your own offspring. And I don't think Marcus Aurelius really, uh, you know, figured in for things like that. That wasn't really what he was talking about as being like a famous emperor and shit. But he was like, more like just probably the gen pop and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and I was thinking about this because the other day I ended up, being on the job with my boss and kind of unprepared for it. And I don't know, he didn't say he was kind to me, but I got the impression, there was a little bit of disappointment on his face over some things, you know. And I was like, okay, I could read that. He didn't have to say anything. It was just the body language and stuff like that. And the kind of person that even for me, he's like a straight up guy, and he's a respectful and respectable guy. And so somebody that for whatever reason feels like you don't want to disappoint that person. It's not the person that you want to let down. And maybe I did that in some way, and I have to reflect on that. And it goes to show like what commands respect, like, and in a particular community, like the community that I like to be around, where I grew up to some extent. I grew up all over the place, but I spent a few years in that community, and they were like, okay, welcome back, and went out of their way to extend every courtesy to me. And well, long story short, I mean, it's like right now at this stage, I can't afford to live there. I was working there, I like to hang out there, but I can't. That's why I live over here on this side. Like a hop, skip, and a jump, but it's like a world away too. 'Cause I don't have that kind of support system over here. So I feel like, hey, if I say I know this guy, call him up, that guy's gonna vouch for me. It's gonna mean something. That's not something you find every day. And so yeah, I think there is something to that, especially you know, not just the posthumous fame, but like for people who are still around and count for you when you're alive, and you're like, yeah, that dude's not a dick, and it helps get you by in certain situations, and just trying to be an active participant in society, whatever the fuck that means. Because we're all social creatures. We're social apes at the end of the day. Um, we want to have connections and interactions. Most of us, at least, unless you're some kind of sociopath. I don't know what to tell you. Um, but yeah, I might have a little bit too. For the most part, you know, over here trying to swing from a tree and live in the jungle. All right, bada bing, bada boom. That's the tale of $1 Million Harry. Um, so yeah, so the guy said, I always knew he was gonna be successful. And you know what? It's something about being successful and being able to be a shrewd business person and maintain your shit and not, be a cutthroat, ruthless fucking leader. And that's another thing that Marcus Aurelius, definitely impresses on you. Um, to try and be more charitable towards people, see things from others' perspectives. So on that note, I'll end it as I always do because I say the same thing at the end of every stream. As be kind, be well, stay trusty, live long and prosper. And also, evolution is real, and the Bible is probably made up. Okay.